All right, let's get right into it. Today, in this explainer, we are going to conduct a strictly factual, entirely deadpan analysis of a highly volatile, globally recognized phenomenon. I'm talking, of course, about the middle-class summer vacation. Based on recent animated sociological accounts, we're looking at a period of time defined not by relaxation, but by extreme survival tactics, severe economic exaggeration, and frankly, borderline military conflict. We're going to examine the undeniable, totally hyperbolic tropes that kids use to describe their summer holidays. From mathematically impossible workloads to organized neighborhood fraud, this analysis will break down exactly how these 6 weeks of supposed leisure are actually a grueling, high-stakes battle for survival.
We've got to start with the stark, heavily exaggerated economic divide that sets the stage for the whole summer. Just think about the sheer polarity of the claims made by classmates here. On side A, we have the astronomical flex, right? A kid casually claiming a summer trip to Mars because Elon Musk is a close family friend who just handed out free tickets. Then, on side B, we have the extreme performance of poverty. We're talking about families claiming they're so destitute that they fitted their motorcycle with bicycle pedals just to avoid buying petrol. In this narrative, poverty is so profound that if a father buys a badminton set, he only gives the child one racket and literally tells them to play with it until it breaks. Families in this bracket even photograph themselves giving money to beggars, just so they can track them down later and ask for a refund when times get tough.
And this perfectly illustrates how the summer starts, not with joy, but with dread. Welcome to Phase 1, the holiday homework nightmare. Before the vacation even begins, the school assigns a volume of work that literally defies physics. This isn't just a packet of worksheets, it's a generational curse. Let's break down the exact, clinically serious numbers reported in our source material. 300,000. That is the number of handwritten pages required, not read, handwritten.
150,000, the required pages of essays.
And finally, 7,000. The amount of mathematical multiplication tables assigned to a single kid. The sheer panic induced by these numbers absolutely cannot be overstated.
So the crucial point here is that this homework is mathematically impossible to complete in a single lifetime. It forces the household into a state of absolute crisis. And who does the burden fall on? Inevitably, the parents. The father works his day job and then spends all night doing the child's 300,000 pages of homework. In fact, the exhaustion is so severe that the father literally has to hire a dedicated servant whose sole job description is to sleep on the father's behalf. As the quote perfectly captures, the dad actually threatens to fire this sleeping servant if the guy doesn't get a good night's rest for him. The absurdity is just fully institutionalized at this point. To spare the father from this endless torment, the children are promptly exiled. This brings us to Phase 2, village survival and sanitation.
The kids are sent off to the ancestral village, which is this place of exaggerated hardship that lacks modern plumbing. It's a place where kids insist on studying by the light of a kerosene lantern, even when the electricity is perfectly fine, just to prove they're struggling. But the true logistical nightmare lies in the sanitation. Consider this bustling, totally bizarre microeconomy that springs up as a result. Without toilets, the entire village utilizes the open fields. But because everyone goes there, the field has actually evolved into a thriving commercial district. You have a chai stall set up specifically to help people build up pressure. There's a McDonald's in the background. A brand new shopping mall has opened right next to the bushes. You even have online delivery drivers navigating the fields to drop off soap, tissue paper, and water to the people squatting.
However, all this commercialization comes with catastrophic wait times. When you break down the timeline, the line to use the field is like a blockbuster movie premiere. On day 1, you take your place at the back of a massive, winding queue. Day 2, you're still just inching forward. It isn't until day 3 that you finally get your turn to relieve yourself. It is an excruciating test of endurance.
If the village doesn't break them, this summer camp definitely will. Welcome to Phase 3. Extreme hide and seek.
Parents are paying good money for a camp instructor to turn a simple neighborhood game into a literal war zone. Just think about the military tactics deployed here. Step 1, the teacher checks behind the trees. Standard procedure, right? But then we escalate to Step 2. A child is suspected to be hiding behind a rock. The teacher doesn't walk over, no, he calls in a tank to blow the rock to pieces. When the final child is suspected to be hiding inside a nearby structure, we reach Step 3. The teacher orders a full-scale strike to demolish the entire building, forcing the kid to surrender before the missile hits. This perfectly illustrates the child's perspective of adult authority: aggressive, entirely disproportionate, and terrifyingly well-armed.
For those who somehow survive the camp and the village, there is no rest. They must face Phase 4, the unpaid home internship.
This right here is the inescapable reality of spending the summer at home. The kid is drafted into a brutal, non-unionized labor force to manage household chores. Consider this incredibly ruthless corporate reward structure set up by the parents. The child completes massive tasks, filling all the fridge water bottles, buying vegetables from the market, and doing a deep clean of the entire storeroom. The agreed-upon compensation? 30 minutes of television time. However, management, meaning the parents, docks 15 minutes immediately because the child allegedly overused their TV time last week. Then they find another excuse to cut the rest. The net total reward for a day of hard manual labor is exactly 0 minutes of screen time. It is a completely rigged system.
Because the child feels so oppressed by the system, mundane tasks take on a highly dramatized cinematic quality in their minds. Think about this extraction plan. The child is given instructions to approach Tower B, wait for a red car, identify a target wearing a black cap, hand over a package, and extract the cash. It sounds like a high-stakes hitman mission orchestrated by a mafia boss. In reality, the child is just being sent down to the street to pay the local delivery guy for the groceries. The hyperbole is basically just a coping mechanism for the sheer boredom of errands.
Which brings us to our final and frankly most lucrative phase of the summer. Phase 5, the Cooler Ghost Scam.
Pushed to the brink by unpaid labor and oppressive homework, the kids finally decide to fight back. They move from being victims to becoming organized neighborhood fraudsters. It all starts with this absolutely critical logistical question. Why does the evaporative water cooler run out of water every 2 hours? This is the bane of the summer existence. Whether you're eating, sleeping, or waiting 3 days in the defecation line, you are constantly interrupted by the need to refill the heavy water cooler. The children realize they need a permanent way out of this chore. So they invent this brilliant narrative. The cooler isn't evaporating water. It's actually possessed by a thirsty ghost. To solve this, they bring in Baba Bengali, an expert exorcist. Now, Baba Bengali is actually just a neighborhood friend in a disguise, chanting this utterly ridiculous, completely made-up spell, Altu Chalatu Burtko Nikaltu, which roughly translates to nonsense-rhyming words demanding the ghost to leave.
And this brings us to the actual business model of the scam, which is flawlessly executed. Step 1, invent the paranormal entity. Step 2, bring in the fake exorcist. Step 3 is the real genius. How do they prove the ghost is gone and the water stops draining? They just secretly switch off the cooler's internal water pump button. The water stops moving, the cooler stops draining, and the exorcism is deemed a massive success. Finally, they collect cash donations from the relieved parents to pay the Baba's fee. They split the cash among themselves. It's so successful, they immediately start planning their next heist, tackling the so-called fridge ghost.
It's literally a masterclass in turning oppression into profit. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a thought. We've looked at the mathematically impossible homework, the tactical war zones of summer camps, and the elaborate frauds committed just to avoid refilling a water cooler. It just shows how incredibly creative the mind gets when trying to survive the mundane. So what about you? What elaborate cooler ghost scams did you invent to survive your own unpaid summer internship as a kid? Think about it and appreciate the absolute hyperbolic absurdity of the middle-class summer vacation. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive.